All right. Well, hello and welcome to Save San Diego's Whole Family Wellness webinar on cultivating resilience and optimism. This is our first of 4 webinars that will be hosted this year, and we just want to tell you how happy we are that you're able to join us this evening. My name is Alicia Copy. I am a program director here with Save San Diego. And I want to thank United Healthcare for sponsoring this event, as well as Andrea Rocha for providing our simultaneous translation for those who select Spanish using the interpretation button below. There should be a little globe and you can just go there for Spanish translation. At the end of our 1-hour session this evening, please take a moment and complete the survey that will be linked in our chat. We appreciate your feedback. We need your feedback, and that feedback is going to help inform future webinars for us. I would now like to introduce our presenter for the evening, Ana de la Paz. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as the clinical director at Transcend Therapy. Transcend Therapy is a local counseling practice serving individuals, couples, and families. And Anna specializes in working with caregivers, healthcare professionals, and children of immigrants. She is passionate about helping people develop their inner resilience, which is why we have asked her to be our keynote speaker tonight. We are fortunate to be able to hear from her this evening. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Anna.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I'm really glad to be doing this tonight, and I'm excited to see how all of this goes with these future webinars as well. But I'm just thankful for everyone who's attending tonight. I'm hopeful that you'll gather some great information from this presentation, and then some great resources as well towards the end. I'm going to change over to sharing my screen, my presentation. So give me just one moment. Right here. Gotta do a little clicking to get around the whole process. But here we are. We're really focusing today on cultivating resilience and optimism. I'll be defining this for you as well. And then again, hoping that there's some new knowledge that you'll take away from this. So a little bit about me. Again, my name's Anna. I'm also a San Diego native here. So really excited to be working with Save San Diego to provide this webinar. As Lish had mentioned, I'm a clinical director with our group practice, and a lot of the people that I support in our practice are people who are struggling with anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, addiction, and post-traumatic stress. So this is also why resilience is really important to me. I also work with a lot of children of immigrants, families during pregnancy and postpartum, as well as military families and veterans. I myself am a children of immigrants. My parents are Filipino. They came here in the mid-'80s. So that's why that population is so important to me. I've worked with a variety of nonprofits before I joined Transcend, with Kickstart. You may have heard of them. They support youth and their families who are dealing with early psychosis. I've also worked with mental health systems in McAllister Institute, and that's where I really gained a lot of experience working with addiction. I am hopeful, again, to bring optimism and hope to people when they're struggling in their lives. That's why I love what I do as a therapist. So when we get started, kind of thinking about what resilience is, there's this definition here from the American Psychological Association, which is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. And I love memes. I love things that make me laugh. I also love animals. I tell a lot of the people that I work with that life is going to happen, and we always kind of have a choice as to whether we laugh or we cry about the situation. And so this is cute Pomeranian, way too windy for him. But you'll see a few memes and GIFs throughout this presentation that I hope you'll enjoy. this next slide here is a brief resilience scale. There's a ton of things online that you can go Google about how to rate your own resilience. These questions here, they can be a way for you to start looking at, okay, what am I really like when things are hard? Do I tend to bounce back quickly? Am I flexible after a hard time? Maybe a loss or a big change? Do I also, on the other hand, have a hard time getting through stressful events? Do I kind of let them stick with me, carry them into my next day, weeks, months? I think when you start to ask yourselves these questions, you can notice, okay, am I as tough as I want to seem? And then this next statement here, it does not take me long to recover from a stressful event. So again, this is looking at how quickly it takes us when something happens, either a loss or change, and can we get back to our normal life? And then all of these statements sound really similar, but when you're rating yourself and kind of looking, am I resilient? Am I strong? It's really kind of at that time and place. Resilience can grow over time and with practice. So that's where I'm really hopeful today that we'll be able to teach you some skills that you can carry into tomorrow, into the next day, maybe share with people who aren't attending this presentation, and help them build their resilience as well. So one of the big pieces here is why resilience is so important for teenagers and their families. I've worked with teenagers pretty much all of my career as a therapist, and I really just focus in on the fact that everything is changing all the time. Nothing is really static, and we can really look at that in the way that teenagers, young adults are, so connected to their cell phones, to social media. That stuff changes in an instant. And this goes along with changing moods, changing emotions, body changes, as well as those relationships. So a lot of teenagers, adolescents, they're creating new relationships when they get into high school, finding new friend groups, finding new interests that maybe they didn't have when they were younger in elementary school. And those relationships are being built outside of their family. Being again Filipino, it's so interesting to me when you start to have friends who aren't your cousins. And I think that's a really cool thing when we're looking at how adolescence really changes life. It's also a big time for change in rules and expectations, maybe more responsibility. And that obviously isn't always welcomed, but I think when we're building our resilience, then it's a little bit easier to adapt. And like I had mentioned before, we're looking at how trends, styles, and interests are changing every single day, it seems like. I work with a lot of folks who are sharing TikToks with me, telling me about the Snapchat accounts that they have, all, 5 of them. I'm like, how do you keep up with all of that change? Because it seems that trying to manage all of that can get really stressful. But I'm always telling parents that I work with that teens are adaptable. They will change. It's just maybe not in the way you want. So one of the big pieces here that I really focus on with understanding resilience is inside of our brains. We've all got a brain. We might not seem like we're using it all the time. And then if we've got a hand here, we might have a cell phone in the other one. But this is a really cool way for us to understand what's going on in here that we can't always see. So this is a model of the brain. You can kind of pretend that your hand is this brain, and then your tips of your fingers here are the front of your brain. And this is where a lot of our organization, our planning, our what we call advanced thinking happens. The other parts of our brain, the lower parts, like our thumb here, if we consider it's kind of that more primitive part. It's where our emotions live. It's also, as we get down into the brainstem, where our, our basic physical functions are. These are the parts of the brain that were originated long before we were able to do something like this, which is use a computer to talk to each other from miles and miles away. In the teenage brain, all of these new connections are being made, especially when we look at those relationships, those changes in, school life, in family life. And so I think it's really important to get a good grasp of what's inside our own heads. And then also to know, like, hey, the people that I'm interacting with also have a brain in there, and it's doing some stuff that's probably different than mine. And when we're looking here, one of the things that I always like to focus on is that this amygdala, it's kind of got a funny name, but it's basically the emotion center of our brain. And this is the piece that can really get amped up when we're looking at a teenager who maybe is frustrated, upset, displeased. And that piece of our brain is so, so essential. And it also needs a regulator sometimes. And that's where this prefrontal cortex here, if you can see my mouse, that's what's going to help us put the brakes on what the amygdala, our brain, is doing. And so when we consider how we build this part of our brain to pay attention, to concentrate, to focus, it really requires that we build some connections between these two parts. And so the next piece here is being able to train your brain. I teach a lot of these skills in my therapy with individuals, with families, because these are the things that help calm down that emotional center. They allow us to focus on what's happening in the moment versus what could happen to us in the future or what's already happened in the past. These are really useful tools for resilience, because when we're not as resilient, we might stay stuck mentally in something that's already happened that we can't fix. That's where I often see people struggling with depression. So being able to ground, being able to set and settle in what's happening in the moment can be so, so useful. I can move my little video here. I teach this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 skill to almost everybody, ages 5 all the way to 90, because it's something that's active. A lot of folks think that, oh, meditation, you're just going to sit on a pillow and be completely still and try to make your brain have no thoughts. That's actually impossible to have your brain not have any thoughts. So I always like to encourage people to do something, at least if they're in, the beginning of a meditation or mindfulness practice, to do something active. And this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a way to do that. It helps us really focus on what our physical experience is and connecting it to where we are in that moment. A lot of us are so on autopilot that it just kind of takes away from what we can lock into our memories and what we then can use to be more resilient. And then when I was looking up this image here, I was like, earth grounding. I feel like I know what that means, but when I looked into it further, it's physically touching the earth or the grass or dirt. So I would consider like gardening, getting your hands into the earth would be a great way to earth ground. You might also encounter people who want to, walk around without any shoes, put their feet in the grass. That is another way to just get those sensations that you would probably be ignoring if you're just on autopilot. Taking deep breaths, I probably ought to do that right now because public speaking is always a challenge for most folks. And then being able to also connect with nature. I think that can really help us recenter, remind us that we're not always in an environment where we have to be stressed. Let's see here. And so when we get back to our brain and we can understand building these connections between the emotional part and this kind of prefrontal cortex where we're paying attention, we're concentrating, I encourage folks to be self-compassionate. So this is saying to myself, you know what, I'm stressed, I'm hurt, and being as kind to ourselves as we would to a friend going through the same situation. Teenagers have to be able to build their empathy for others, and being aware of their emotions so that they can express accurately what they're feeling and thinking. I know that a lot of parents that I've worked with say, you know, I just know what my child is feeling and doing. You may very well because you're their parent. But I think it's so important for teenagers and adolescents to speak. You have the gift of your voice. You use it with your friends, you use it in text messages, but it is really crucial to use that voice to share with people who care about you what you're feeling. And then with exercise and flexibility to build individual resilience, I do mean physical exercise and flexibility, but I also mean that in the mental way. Because when you consider being, you know, an athlete or doing a sport, using your body physically, it is really important to stretch, to be flexible so that you don't injure yourself further, to be able to bend and adapt. The other piece here is being kind in the way that we speak to ourselves. I've worked with so many people over the years who just speak to themselves in such a harsh way that it's no wonder that they would feel down, that they would feel anxious, depressed. And being able to speak softly, again, using that self-compassion, and saying to ourselves, like, you know what, I'm doing okay. I'm trying my best. Those are really important skills. And then because I'm a marriage and family therapist, I see everybody's families inside of them, even if I'm working with someone one-on-one. I think it is really crucial to understand where we come from, the importance of our relationships, how we define our families, and being thankful for the pieces of our families that we want to continue to carry. That gratitude, again, being able to express how we feel, how we appreciate what's being done for us, you know, whether it's someone making our lunch or picking us up from school, waking us up for school in the morning. Those are things that we can thank the people in our lives for. I also really encourage people to develop activities that bring them closer together. So for some folks, it could be cooking. I really love food. It could be getting in the kitchen together, learning how to make something that you really love to eat or making it for someone else. And then again, empathy here is really that process of being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and saying, I understand how that feels. I used to work a lot with parents of very young kids, of toddlers, and you can see it in kids that age, between 2 or 3. They have to be taught how to be empathetic. You can see it in, are they sharing? Are they playing nicely? Keeping their hands to themselves? Are they aware that if they steal a toy, that it's going to make somebody else mad? That's what I mean when we're thinking about teaching empathy, and being able to say, hey, I feel how you're feeling, and I want to help you. So this other piece here that I think is probably the most crucial is being able to be connected to your community. And however you define that community is really up to you. I really like this visual here of looking at those circles, kind of like nesting dolls that sit inside of each other, because there's us in our personal space, and then there's our interpersonal, the people maybe close to us, our best friends, our friends, and then our family, and then maybe the community, the schools we attend, the clubs that we're in, the sports teams that we're enjoying. And then the bigger piece here is the system. A lot of people mistake MFTs for only working with families, but we also really work with systems. And we want to be able to help people connect to their community at large. When we know that maybe it, especially in the last couple of years of the pandemic, has been isolating. So I think this image really kind of gets to what the importance is in having these community connections. And over here, giving and generosity, I highlight this because this is how we can create, again, that empathy, that ability to see that others are in need. And maybe when we're in need the next time, that they'll be giving to us. A lot of how we are built as a society is based on being able to give, and to do that without expectation. When our communities are able to give, that really strengthens how connected we are. I kind of came up with this when I was looking at this circle image here. You could ride a unicycle. It's possible to do it. It's really hard though. And it's just you all alone on that unicycle. You're trying to balance, hold it all. And that seems pretty tough. You're not going to ride a unicycle for, 2,000 miles. I mean, maybe somebody could. I'd like to see them try. But when we add a few more wheels, we can really then add some other people onto our ride. We can help carry them, get them further than they would just on their own. And I think that that's a really nice way to consider why we need community connections, why we need people to support us in our lives. And again, the size of your network can be your strength. It's kind of that combination of quantity and quality. And I really liked this tricycle GIF that I found because I was like, oh, there's cute little aliens. But even in this image, you can see that they wouldn't be able to ride this tricycle without the other two. It would be a stationary bike. And that could be, again, an indicator of how far we can get. I think even in being able to do this presentation this evening, I was so surprised to see Alicia again, because we actually went to school together. And it's been quite a while, but it was so awesome to reconnect and to be able to say, hey, we're going to do this thing, this webinar together, and then bring it to the Stay San Diego community. And then I have this last GIF here, because the bigger your community is, the more people that you're able to carry, they can carry you too when times are tough. And I think when we're looking at how people stay resilient, it really is those connections, whether it's through their family, their school, their church. Those are the things that can help people when life is really hard, when they might not feel like they can do it on their own. And it definitely is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. That's why I am so committed here as a therapist to help people understand, like, mental health is real and we need to ask for help with it sometimes. So this is kind of the conclusion of my part of this presentation. I wanted to, again, thank you all. I hope that I was clear enough in some of this. I had a lot of info to share. And then I just wanted to kind of hand it over to Monica to share some of the resources that she's brought along for us.
Thanks, Hannah. Hi, I'm Monica. I am the Resource and Referral Manager here at Stay San Diego. And I will actually be sharing a screen with you. Okay, if y'all can see it. So basically what we wanted to do was we wanted to take what Anna mentioned and be able to provide some resources for you. This is just a one sheet that we'll be sending out via email. But we wanted to make sure that, you kind of know that you have a community with us, you have allies with us here at Stay San Diego. So by training your brain and building individual resilience, something that Anna talked about, we have one of the things, she talked about grounding, she talked about just different tactics, But if you do need external assistance, we have, we have Anna and her team over at Transcend Therapy. We have our team here, the Say San Diego Wellness Center, that has therapists available. But also, we wanted to make sure that, in order to take advantage of some of these therapies, make sure that you have health insurance. So if you don't have health insurance right now, you can always feel free to contact me, and I'll be able to maybe coordinate you with a healthcare specialist that will be able to, help you be able to get connected with a healthcare provider. That being said, we also have the Be Well hotline. It's not meant to replace therapy, but it's a warm line that provides a listening ear. So that's one we've already also placed in our resource list. For nurturing our relationships, Anna talked about, nurturing relationships with your family. So we've listed some free family time resources. Well, most of them are free. Some of them are very low cost. By sandiego.org, the San Diego Library. Did you know that the San Diego Library also, with your library card, has an opportunity to go see some San Diego venues for free? You'll have to register. All the information will be on the list. And the County of San Diego Parks and Recreation just came out with their spring edition that shows all the different fun activities that you can do with your family or by yourself. Community connections. So we wanted to emphasize that we have opportunities here at Say San Diego where you can really connect with communities. We have opportunities for teen community participation through our advocacy groups, such as ACT, The Collective, and What I Wish My Parents Knew. Also, the size of your network, like Anna said, is your strength. So let's Say San Diego be a part of that community. We have family resources stationed throughout San Diego that can assist, and the resource and referral hub located with us is always available to help. And our contact information is on the sheet right here, which is also in Spanish. We'll be sending that out via email to you all after this webinar. And we'll be starting a resource newsletter filled with community events and resources, both external and internal to Say San Diego. So that's going to be happening soon. So if you are interested in receiving resources, please message me to get onto that distribution list. Finally, thank you for attending the first webinar of the Say San Diego Whole Family Wellness Series. As a reminder, this is the one in series of 4 webinars that focuses on raising awareness for child and family mental health. And we'll be hosting 3 more of these webinars quarterly this year, so be on the lookout for that. And a special thank you to United Healthcare Foundation for making these series possible. Also, Andrea Rocha for providing translation, and for Ana de la Paz from Transcend Therapy for speaking with us and her amazing work in this field. Please take a moment and complete the survey that's going to be linked onto the chat. You should see it soon. Your feedback will be very much appreciated. It'll help us with our future webinars and training. And be on the lookout for that follow-up email with an invite to our next webinar and the list of resources that I just talked about today. So I hope you have a wonderful night, and thank you all for coming.